Hello and welcome back to FIF TV. I'm Conor
I'm Nick.
and we're here to discuss Juventus and whether or not their Serie A dominance is coming to an end. So, Nick, Juventus, what do you think then, just straight off the bat? Is their period of supreme dominance in Italy about to slow down a little bit?
In a short word, in one word, I think yes, but I don't necessarily think that means they're not going to win Serie A next season or anything like that.
Okay.
I think that clearly the last 3 to 4 years particularly, we've all kind of known that they were going to win every season going into it. And I think that kind of mentality and that kind of one team competition, I think that's possibly come to an end now. I think personally, Juventus have reached their peak in terms of their current era of success. And I think you've got the likes of Napoli, Roma, in the short term, well, probably less so Roma, I might say, since Spalletti's leaving, but definitely Napoli. And then you've got the Milan Giants, who maybe won't do much next season in terms of a Scudetto challenge, but certainly in the next 2 to 3 years, you have to think with the extra investment they're going to be pushing. So I think competition-wise, it's great for Serie A, but I think the dominance of Juve in Italy has come to an end.
That was a long one word.
Yeah.
So one of the points then is a lot of their players are over 30 years old.
Yeah.
9 of them being not the most key players, but regular first-team players. To sum that up, like Andrea Barzagli and Claudio Marchisio are both, neither are key players, but both are very important players.
Yeah.
Dani Alves looks like he's about to leave. He's off to Man City for 5 million. We'll go into that a bit more later, but his obvious replacement will be Stefan Lichtsteiner, who himself is 33.
Yeah.
So they're going to need someone else there to come in at right back. Alexandro could be joining him on the way out, going to Chelsea possibly. That could be a sign that Spinazzola's returning. But I suppose let's look at the age of their players then. With so many of their regular players over 30, Gonzalo Higuain's 29, whose fitness has been seen as a concern at times. What do you think? Are these players naturally going to slow down? And then you've got Napoli, who have a lot of impressive young players, are coming to their peak.
Yeah. I guess something that Juve's done better than anyone else over the last decade or so, or half a decade, is that they've been able to change with different times as players come and go. And we've all kind of really respected the way they've done that, whether it's in midfield, Pirlo, up in attack with Tevez, there was Vidal. So we've seen these stars that have come in and gone, but they've managed to keep going. And the key thing is that it's always been that defence that has stayed constant. And that's my thing looking forward, that's the key. And when you look at Chiellini, Barzagli in particular, who are getting towards that age, they're not as quick, not that they were ever that quick. Bonucci's still got a few years, obviously, but it's not the same defence as it was. And that's kind of the main reason for my answer before. It's that these players won't get any better than they have been.
Yes.
And they're in a decline. And whilst Juve does have possibly you could argue the 3 out of 4 of the Italy's up and coming defensive line, that's all well and good. But to compare it to a BBC, that's something in itself. That's something that you can't replicate, and that's built over a huge amount of years. So
it's strange that you say that, because even in defensive terms, it wouldn't be the central part of that I'd be too worried about. Because like you say, they've got Danilo Rugani and Mattia Caldara, who are ready to come in and be the new BBC, if you like. But it's more either side of that and behind it. Because I know Gianluigi Donnarumma maybe will go there, but that's still some way in the distance, I feel. Not this summer. And then, as we said, the wing-backs.
Yeah.
So where do they go to replace these players? Because there's not obvious replacements for Alexandro and Dani Alves.
That does puzzle me. If they were to leave, Dani Alves, yes, he's 34?
34, yeah.
34 now. So if you look at his age, you think, okay, he's getting on. But you look at the last few months that he finished off the season, and you've got to think he's got at least 1 to 2 seasons left in him. And it makes no sense. If he leaves, and I think you mentioned Lichtsteiner might take over. Well, he's the likely replacement.
Yeah.
The quality of the team goes down. So And there is something that's we've seen often in Serie A is the defensive depth is not great at the moment, and you can't see an instant someone that's going to come in and fill that role as well. And the same goes for Alexandro. So if Juve goes into next season without those two wide men in defence, that's concerning in that that new 4-2-3-1, because it relies heavily on a strong wing back, and you have to wonder whether, well, yeah, what's going to happen or who they're going to use to fill that role.
That's the thing. They've not even been linked with too many players during this transfer window. I know it's still early and technically the window hasn't actually opened, but clubs are doing their business. Milan have been brilliant so far. The Donnarumma thing is the only black mark you would hold against them so far. Inter, well, they did all their spending in previous years, and it looks like this summer is just going to be one of solidity. But if we look at who Juve have been linked with, they were linked with Marco Verratti, but Giuseppe Marotta came out and said they're not going to pay 100 million for anyone. Paris are determined to keep hold of him. Stefan Nzonzi, Sevilla. I've seen them linked with him for about 40 million, I think it was, and Marotta said they're interested. What do you think about that?
I think it would actually be a reasonably smart move, given that I think everyone will kind of knows Verratti's skill and quality that he has, and obviously if Juve did manage to get him, I mean that changes a lot of things, and that almost sets the precedent for the new era. It's something to build off. That's your guy that you're building the next era of success off of. It'll take a few years, but you know, as another option, Nzonzi, I think he's quite smart. He's been very solid at Sevilla. I think in that kind of defensive midfield role, he could possibly help to with that transition of that defensive line. I think he's a very stable person to have in front of that defensive line. So, yeah, I mean, if he's 70 million odd cheaper than Verratti, I mean, it might be a great buy. And you know, knowing Juve, if he plays 2 good seasons, they could probably sell him for 100. So
yeah, easily.
You know,
if we're gonna look at the rivals, then it's again because the window is so young at the moment. It's too early to make any real predictions for next season. But I think I was on record saying that I think Napoli can do a serious challenge for the Scudetto next season. Obviously, dependent on the summer, but as things stand, Napoli are in a good position. Can you see them dethroning Juve next year?
I think they do have the ability. I think Juve obviously will go in rightfully favourites, but I don't know. For me, I still think Juventus, their main goal going to last season even was the Champions League, and I think, you know, while I think their chance might have been gone, I think that possibly will remain their focus, which might allow a team like Napoli, who has been building, and you know, while they finished 3rd last season, if you actually look at how things panned out, it was actually they're 100% building towards something. So they've got added depth now. If they could possibly get 1 or 2 defensive recruits, they could be incredibly strong. Obviously, if they do keep hold of everyone, you know, there's a big summer transfer window ahead of us still. So, but yeah, they're the most logical challenges, I think.
Yeah, I suppose quickly on the Milan clubs then. They're not going to win Serie A next year.
No.
But both of them should have realistic ambitions of getting back into the Champions League next season. There's 4 places.
Yeah.
Roma, we don't know what to expect from them.
Yeah.
Especially with Di Francesco going in there. So there are, you would imagine 2 of those 4 places are very much up for grabs.
Yeah.
Napoli and Juve will probably be 1st and 2nd. But how long until AC Milan and Inter are competing for Serie A again?
It's a big question. Yeah, definitely next season, as you said, it's not realistic. 2 seasons. I think 2 seasons, if a club gets it right, gets the right combinations, that's realistic to say.
And sticks with it.
Yeah, and sticks with it, and doesn't, you know, go through 3 coaches a season. That's obviously always helps. But yeah, if the combinations are right, they can do it in 2 seasons, I think. But you know, they could very well do an Inter, spend 100 mil and go backwards. So it needs to be money well spent. Players that are actually going to play well together, not just individuals who are more ego than anything else.
Alright, I think that'll just about do it for us in this video anyway. We might do a couple more before
why not?
Head home to Ireland. Sunny Ireland, I'm sure. Yeah, if you like our stuff, you can help us out by going down into the description there. Going down into the description there. And pledging $1 or $2 to us per month on patreon.com. That's patreon.com/Forza Italian Football. I got it right the first time.
Nice one.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I think that's about it, isn't it? And head to ForzaItalianFootball.com and read our wonderful features and news and everything you need to keep up with Calcio. But until next time, there's nothing really for me to say except ciao for now. There you go.